been a while, Lewis. How's it been since I think the last time we recorded was like a month ago. How's it been since then?
God, I've actually discovered the meaning of life and forgotten about it in the meantime. So like, it's kind of quite unfortunate. If we actually did like record something in the middle of that session, I probably could have answered everyone's problems. I think I also found a cure for cancer in the meantime as well, but that's also slipped my mind as well. I probably should have wrote it down. That would have been funny.
Well, such a shame that our schedules never seem to work out in that case. So
yeah.
Such a loss. Anyways, it's been a long time since we've covered some anime. I don't even remember the last episodes of shows we covered. It was probably 3 or 4 before they ended. So
in that
around
ballpark,
that area?
Yeah.
So basically, this recording, we're going to pretty much just go over the shows we watched the last season, which ended like a month ago, but we're only getting to now. So we're going to wrap up our thoughts on those, just like general thoughts. We're not going to go over each episode. I mean, we can get into those points when we talk about the shows, but for the most part, it's going to be our general thoughts on the show overall since they finished. We probably won't get into anything this season because I think Lewis started watching shows, but I haven't yet because basically I haven't watched any anime in the last month. I just started it again 2 days ago because, as people now know, I was working on the ReZero video the whole time, which was fucking utterly pointless apparently because TV Tokyo were a bunch of fucking assholes and blocked it the second it went up. And then I had to fucking just block over all my editing with a giant black box full of text anyways. But that refutation has gone through, so now they have to sue me to counter it, which they might because they're kind of dicks. But then it would be fun to countersue them, so let's see what happens. Hey.
Riyogaa goes to court. It's like an Ace Attorney.
Riyogaa goes to court. I'll film it and no, I won't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. It probably would have happened. This has actually happened once before. I don't remember which company did it, but basically I got a refutation through because YouTube actually reviews your counter before they send it. Like, they have to manually review it. Like, it's been 2 days since I put in the counter, and I just got the message this morning that I went through. So YouTube actually approved my counter to go through. So YouTube's got my back. Not really, but sort of. So yeah. Basically, what happened last time is it went through, and then there's a 14-day deadline for them to give YouTube proof that they're making legal action against me. And if they don't do it within that time, the video just gets restored. Because that's the only way they can stop the video from going back up. Because basically, my refutation is a legal statement of, I have all legal rights to do this, go fuck yourselves. So the only way they can counter it is by doing actual court lawsuit against me, and that's the only way to stop it from going up. But they get 2 weeks to do it, and they will let those 2 weeks drain by rather than just manually undoing the strike because they're fucking assholes and they just want it to be down as long as possible because there's literally no loss for them because there's no payback at all for it, which is bullshit. Welcome to YouTube.
Yep. It's fair use has really gone down to shitter really ever since 2010 maybe.
Yeah, the problem is our fair use law is too vague. It was vague on purpose because that, benefited everyone for the most part. But now it's gotten to the point where corporations are, more assholes than usual. So now the vagueness isn't in our favor. So it needs to be redone. Which is the thing that people kind of know about. So hopefully it comes to fruition soon. But who really knows? Plus, the important thing to remember also is that Japan is a bit behind when it comes to fair use stuff. So they are much more selfish about this kind of thing. We know the whole debacle about YouTube, or not YouTube, is Nintendo and their games getting Let's Played. How they have a system in place that you have to go through them to give them a fraction of your income in order to put up the videos without getting struck by them or whatever. So Japan's a bit behind the times when it comes to that. But luckily, when it comes to the internet, the corporation that makes the website is the king, and YouTube is a United States-based company. So fair use is in my favor. But hey, we'll see what happens. I don't think TV Tokyo is actually willing to spend the money to sue me in California, but we'll see. Who knows?
That'll make headlines, really,
It would be funny.
Yeah. At least on
not
ANN,
really,
at
because then
least.
I'd have to get the money to pay a lawyer, and that wouldn't be very fun, but hey.
I'll represent you. Don't worry. I know politics.
I just have to pay your plane ticket to represent me.
Yeah, man. And
God.
probably food, maybe.
Anyways, anime. That's a thing we're covering.
Shit,
Shows we finished last season, and maybe a little bit of the newest season, if it's because I know you've watched a bit, Lewis, but like I said, I haven't yet.
Only 2 episodes.
Yeah, but that's more than I have. I'm just finishing up shows from last season as of 2 days ago because the video finally went up. I only have 2 shows left. 3 shows. No,
Oh.
yeah, no 2 shows left to catch up on from this season, and then I can start watching new season stuff. But yeah, last season shows. Let's cover them because I don't know how long this will take. We may be short because we don't remember too much since it's been a while, or it could be long because we have a lot of things to say. But ironically, the first show to cover that we usually do is ReZero, and I think I've made my thoughts pretty clear on ReZero of my own accord. So there's really nothing for me to say, so I'm just gonna leave the floor to you, Lewis, and maybe I'll add on to anything you say.
Tight. Well, here's shit. Okay.
That's a great start.
Yeah. What are my thoughts on ReZero? That is a loaded question.
It is
Polarizing as well, I must admit.
surprisingly polarizing, but I guess it shouldn't be because after it ended, all the YouTubers came out and were like, ReZero was cool, but look at all these issues it has, and it's like, what?
It's sort of like this is actually not going to be me actually talking about ReZero because I love avoiding my own problems, but it's kind of funny when like people like when a big popular show finishes, there's always that sort of like a large section within the anime reviewing community that tend to like just jump on the sort of well, it wasn't that great, guys, come on now, and like so they can just kind of continue to sort of lead a circle jerk going on, and it's kind of frustrating to watch because like when an actually good show like ReZero comes about, it's just a kind of I don't know, it's a frustration when like something generally good gets passed over because it's popular. But
well, maybe I'm just too optimistic, but I feel like it's a twofold thing. The first is that obviously people want a popular show that aired because that's how you get the views. Like, that's just how it works. You're going to talk about the popular shows. And there are some people that genuinely didn't care for the show for the most part, like, and that's fine. And the other issue is that it's something I mention all the time, but it's a lot harder to cover the positives of the show than it is the negatives.
Yeah.
Because with the negatives, all you have to do is point at a thing and say, this is a problem. And it's really kind of self-serving and easy, whereas with a positive, you have to say why something works, which involves more thought than just seeing a thing. So it's kind of like a twofold issue. Like, a lot of the people who covered the negatives of the show actually said that they liked the show, which is kind of funny because they felt the need to, add on that extra bit of saying, I know I'm covering all these negatives, but I did like the show, which is something they should have been able to convey without actually saying something like that. But they can't because it's hard to cover the positives, especially if they don't understand why they liked it. So it's like I said, maybe I'm just too optimistic, but I feel like it's just those two issues combining that caused this sort of thing to happen. But there are shows like Sword Art Online where everyone was just really happy with it at first, and then afterwards everyone's like, what are you talking about? Look at all these fucking issues. It's so fucking stupid. None of this shit makes sense. What the fuck are you talking about? So it's important to take in mind the context of the show in and of themselves for each one. It's not just automatically all these popular shows come out and then people say bad things about it because views. Like, sometimes, critical thought is warranted. But a lot of the negatives that people came up with tended to be, at least in my eyes, kind of artificial. Like, ReZero does have issues. I didn't cover many of them in my video because that wasn't the point of it. I wanted to be the opposite voice because so many people were taking the time to cover all the little issues it had that I wanted to cover everything great it did, with a few minor exceptions. But it's like, the show's not perfect, obviously. Nothing is. It has some issues, but I don't even remember where I was going with that sentence because I rambled for too long.
Yeah.
I think it was something like, no, I don't remember where I was going with it at all.
Well, that's unfortunate because I'm not actually entirely sure where to start with my ReZero analysis, to be honest. Because I was going to use that as a sort of like bait to like try and like my sort of like starting position, but I haven't actually gotten there yet. So I'm just going to like start talking and hopefully I'll actually find somewhere to go.
You'll make a point along the way.
Yeah, I'll just kind of like summarize my thoughts of some good things. So I guess I'll start off with the main thing of Subaru. Like, there is a stigma that's kind of been placed on him, that's been kind of like I'm not gonna say unwarranted because like the show was kind of going for that sort of area, but like people either kind of hate him because he's neat, or they like him because he's dark, and that's sort of the sort of stigma, which is kind of how would I put this? It kind of like makes his character not as it makes it more shallow. Is probably the best way to put it. So, lack of a better term, because when you go out and simplify something as complex as him, when it's like there's many like outside elements that are kind of coming in and factoring to his actual development and his actual character, it's hard to actually summarize that in one thing. Now, the reason why one of my favorite things about ReZero was probably the entire area where he was actually going through his dark, punished Subaru phase. So it was pleasant to actually see that done in a kind of like nice way. Like, they weren't going for the sort of classic I wouldn't say Madoka approach where, like, you know, dark for the sake of being dark, but there have been many shows that have like done the sort of grim dark. Well, he is edgy, and we're gonna make him, like, you know, suffer as a result. They actually had like that sort of like reasoning and backbone, and the actual, you know, punishments and reasons for his actions, which what made that sort of depth necessary for his actual punished self. With his sort of relationship with the rest of the cast, it was kind of hit or miss. I felt, because there were some things here and there that were required a little bit more depth when you actually thought about it in the overall thing. In the in the grand scheme of things, I felt, looking back on it, that some of his relationships could have required that little bit extra bit of depth, because, like, we've seen multiple timelines of Subaru kind of like engage with conversation and get to know these characters a lot better through the various sort of timelines and situations he's been in through the respawning thing he's got going. But for the characters to actually know him, it was probably only like what felt like a good month for him was probably actually a space of a week, which is probably the main issue with a lot of time travel shows, but it kind of became very apparent thinking about it here. But the thing is, though, the character interactions within ReZero itself were very concise. There weren't a lot more fluff. There was a lot of necessary sort of character development going on, but there's also a lot of humanizing of characters within those developing scenes, which made the relationships feel realistic, and they also made them feel like they're not wasting their time, which is probably the key thing you want to get out of each and every single one of conversations to go in there. Like, there's always that sort of like trend within a lot of the sort of ReZero conversations where there's always like there's always a little bit of banter going on, like this the conversation with Amelia that he was having in the garden in the first arc, where he actually learned about shaman, his like magical power. Like, there was definitely a sort of banter going on between them, like that sort of usual thing going on, but there's also that sort of key intrigue into the actual overall plot itself. I can go on and on about how good conversations are going on, but there's a lot of stuff to cover in ReZero, so I'm going to make this as brief as possible, as I possibly can. Secondly, I guess I should talk about Rem, because she's not really kind of escaping my mind for the time being. Rem was nice, I guess. Like, I didn't, like, you know, I wasn't really one to kind of like jump on her the Rem train, you know, when, like, what was the episode
18
16 18, yeah. When that came around, I was kind of like, well, yes, true, valid point, Rem, but we kind of spent the first half building Subaru and Amelia up, which never left my mind. I felt like it left the mind of everyone else watching, which is kind of like brought up the entire reasoning of, you know, oh gosh darn Amelia, what a damn womanizing man eater, you know, like it was quite it was quite a quite bad. I guess that was my only biggest flaw with the actual show, was they kind of how they forgot about Amelia in that second arc. I mentioned this in the previous SMRs, but the fact that they just kind of like brushed over Amelia, like they just kind of like made her such a vital part of the story, and then like as soon as like she came into contention with the what was it called, the priestess of the white golden dragon, or
Yeah, I just called it. I just called it the ruler election in my script because I wasn't sure what else to call it, and ruler election just seems to summarize it pretty succinctly.
yeah, that's probably a good way of putting it. Yeah, when that sort of thing came out, it was probably the big roadblock in her character that made her just, I guess, put out a halt, which was probably a very negative thing, because like it was actually around, she was missing for a good 6 episodes, and then she like reappeared in episode 18, and it was just kind of like, oh yeah, Amelia exists. Now I know why Subaru's actually kind of like acting the way he does. He's like going forward and doing that shit. But I think he did that. I suppose one of the key things which I think I need to mention is the plot of ReZero. I am stingy with this sort of thing. Like, I'm not really one for a groundbreaking plot. Like, it's sort of like a character-driven show versus a plot-driven show is probably like there's a sort of like how the fuck am I going to word this? The plot within ReZero is not immensely great. However, that does not mean that it is a criticism in itself, due to the fact that the characters within the show kind of make up for that fact. It has a wide array of characters that, well, Subaru alone is probably the one that actually drives the plot along, growing with his entire character plot and arc. So, but the plot itself is, it's not something which I can like shout the greatest things about, but I don't feel like that's a legitimate criticism, you know, because it wasn't really a key factor for me, because you know it never really came into my mind. Really, it was more of like the characters' dilemmas rather than like the plot. I can't really.
Well, let me toss in something just to get the wheels churning a bit and maybe get this in an interesting direction, because I noticed a lot of the negative videos, or the people who liked the show but had negative things to say about the video, also commonly said that the plot was lackluster. It seems like a common thread that everyone says, like, yeah, the plot in ReZero wasn't that great, but it doesn't matter, or people will say the plot wasn't great, and that's a problem, and stuff like that. And this may sound odd coming from someone who put out a 48-minute video saying all the positive things about ReZero and how great it is, but here's a question for you. What is the plot of ReZero?
It's about a dude who goes to a fantasy world.
That's a setup. That's not a plot.
Yeah, I'm getting to it. Fuck's sake, Riyogaa, have a little patience. It's about a dude who goes to a fantasy world who gets into all sorts of shenanigans with a half-elf and yeah, like I don't see, like that's the thing though. Like it's always a set of character stories that kind of like come together with a sort of plot that kind of acts as a convenient link to connect those all together, is probably the best way to put it, because the royal election was probably a sort of setup for Subaru to, you know, become immensely sort of fucked, you know, like that they didn't really serve any greater service to ReZero other than, like, I don't know, removing removing Amelia from like the audience's eyes for a good few episodes. Like, I think all the plot advancements were simply there out of convenience rather than actual necessity. Like, I feel like the actual show itself was just a continuous link up of character stories and events rather than an actual overarching plot and an end goal, so to speak. Like, there was definitely an end goal by the end of it. Like, that was obviously just, we need to stop Emilia from dying, blah blah blah. But I feel like that was drawn out or evoked from character stories rather than the plot giving weight to it, if that makes sense. I don't.
Sort of. Well, it's just, what I'm saying is that it's always funny to me when I see people criticizing the plot of ReZero, and my unusual automatic thought process goes to, what plot would that be? Like, ReZero doesn't really have a plot. It's just sort of a bunch of things that happen, and there is connecting threads, but it's all, as I put in my video, part of the mystery, part of figuring out what the fuck the overarching connecting threads are. But, I mean, you can argue in the individual arcs have a plot, which is what the fuck is going on and how do we stop this from happening? Which, I guess you could say is the plot of ReZero. A bunch of random connected events that you need to escape from. But there's no overarching plot end goal or anything. It's not like Subaru plops into the world, immediately knows that Emilia is trying to become the priestess, and then that's the end goal. Like, even if the story gets to the point where Emilia does win the election or whatever, it doesn't really feel like that would be the end goal of the show, would it? Because that's the point, is the show is very open-ended. The story is about not knowing what the story is. Like, that's part of the mystery. You need to figure out what the fuck's going on. The only aspect of ReZero that has any hint of an overarching story is Satella, because she permeates everything in the show.
Yeah.
That's the only overarching plot, and we still don't know how that ultimately ties together. We don't know if that makes the ultimate plot getting rid of her forever. We don't know the ultimate plot of maybe it's to resurrect her, because maybe there's some giant misunderstanding. Maybe she's actually a good person and a huge bunch of shit happened. We don't fucking know. So it's just funny when people just half-handedly say the plot sucked in ReZero, but then they never actually explain what said plot was, because there isn't really one. Which I guess you could argue is an issue, the fact that it doesn't have a plot, but I'm saying, my point is that the fact that it doesn't have one is part of the mystery. Like, what is going on here? Like, if we had a primary plot to focus on, it would take off the mystery aspects. You'd be more likely to just take in the general plot rather than think about the overarching sense of everything. But because there isn't a main plot to focus on, you're constantly thinking why, what, who, how, when. So it adds to, like, the whole idea of thinking about what's going on with everything, which I just said. I repeat myself too much. But yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting your talking about ReZero, but that was just a point I wanted to address because it's something I didn't get to do in my video about, ReZero and plot, which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, like, yeah, the plot itself is like, criticizing the lack of plot isn't exactly a sort of solid criticism, because that kind of implies that nothing happens,
Right.
But
stuff totally happens.
Like, yeah. Like, it's just a sort of thing like, oh, well, is it just like a slice of life show or some shit? But no, like, things happen. And criticizing for a sort of lack of plot as a result is kind of redundant, really, because, well, things happen regardless of a sort of lack of structured plot, So it's kind of I wouldn't necessarily say it's a not a valid point. It's not a point you should really even consider when, like, talking about ReZero, but it's still something you should, like, throw in. However, I don't feel like it's a sort of necessary sort of point that would really be a key point to, like, talk about. As in regards to everything else, I suppose I'll briefly mention Betelgeuse. he was an interesting villain. Like, I loved his sort of concept, the fact that, like, you know, his soul kind of lives on in the fingers, blah 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 blah. But he was very silly, very silly. Like, I get the sort of the gist of what they were going for with entire, like, oh, he's gone insane, look at him, ooh, he's mad with power, but like in reality he's just sort of, well, not reality, but to us as the viewer, as like the common sort of objective, well, not the sort of like third person looking at on this, it's sort of, he's just, to me, he was just very silly, and I just couldn't, there was sort of a I wouldn't necessarily, there was no method to his madness or anything like that, because there definitely was some sort of like shit going on with him, but like, be it a sort of factor with Matsuoka's sort of over the top voice acting, or if it was just a matter of that was literally what they were directing with him going, but I feel like he was just a how would I say this? Unnecessarily over the top. Like, he was sort of a necessary crazy villain that was sort of like, you know, oh, this shows the sort of the crazy effects of the witch's power, but it was done too drastically, because we've already kind of seen what the witch's power can do. We don't really need an extra emphasis on it, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Betelgeuse was just over the top. Like, he was extremely over the top. Like, at first I really liked him, but his entire like introduction was ruined when he just started like doing this mad sort of bending over shit, and I just started laughing at his introduction. It was funny, but yeah. What else is there to mention? ReZero was a very, I'm just gonna summarize my thoughts. ReZero was a very good show. Like, it's a show that like I feel won't be forgotten for a long time. Like, there are shows where, which are classics for the season, is probably the best I would put it. Like, shows like, it's quite ironic that I've actually forgotten about some good shows in previous seasons when I'm trying to make this point. But I feel like ReZero had a big impact on the anime community, because like it's garnered the attention of a lot of people. Like, when you have many people talking about it, and when it's evoked so much discussion, albeit some of that discussion, if not most of that discussion, is pure waifu wars. That sort of thing will probably last in the minds of people, so it's definitely going to have an impact on like anime as a whole. As for my own personal thoughts, it's definitely one of my favorites actually come out in recent years. Like, it's sort of like one of those shows which I feel like I'm going to be like, you want to know how to do something good, I'll kind of point you towards that. Like, do you want to have like time travel done well? Well, ReZero will do it. Do you want to have like your character be like, you know, go through a lot of messy shit and be dark? ReZero did that good. You want to have like, you know, a side character like fall in love with your main character and want to make it feel legitimate? ReZero did it. Like, it was a very good show, and I feel like that's probably just the best way to put it, because there were flaws with the show. There definitely were flaws, but they weren't groundbreaking in any way, shape, or form. Like the Amelia thing with her like being an absence wasn't really a nitpick, because her absence didn't necessarily bring upon like like her being replaced by what was happening in ReZero wasn't necessarily a bad thing, because it's the possible time of what was happening in ReZero was solid. Like, everything going on was fair and good. Just their lack of her was just it was a good show. Done.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's I won't go on for very long. I just wanted to mention, you mentioned that it was a show that people aren't going to forget for a while, and I mean, it's I think it's like rank 43 on Mal right now, so
Oh,
it's definitely
is
up
that
there.
popularity or
And in rank, I
just
believe,
overall?
as far as score.
Oh, cool.
It was actually higher for a bit, like immediately after it finished airing. It was actually in like the 34th slot or something. But then the whole negative craze thing we were talking about happened, so it dipped a little. Not too hard. It only dropped like 0.05 points, but it was enough to drop it from like 34 to 43. But still,
Mm,
that's in the top 50 is a very comfortable place to sit.
yeah.
And hopefully that season 2 will. I don't mind if it's not recent, because I would rather they keep adapting the light novels rather than the web novels, because I haven't read them, any of them, except for the first light novel that I got myself because Yen Press are publishing them now. But I've heard that the web novels are like a fucking mess compared to the light novels. Like the light novels are like the edited versions, and like it cuts out all the dumb bullshit. So
Oh, nice.
it'd be better if they waited for the author to finish adapting the web novel into some more light novels before they do a second season, if they do one, which who knows if they'll do one. Like it's easy to say, well, it did pretty well in sales and it's popular and the Rem merchandise is probably going to sell like fucking hotcakes.
Yeah.
So it'll probably get a second season, but who knows? It's really up to the studios and the staff and everything. But I will say, passion projects end up seeing fruition again, because it's very clear from all like the staff interviews I saw that everyone working on the show enjoyed it a lot. And then it's also mentioned that ReZero wasn't originally meant to be 2 cores, but because of all the stuff they were doing with it, like they went to the producer and were like, we need a second core, and the producer actually like did it. Like there wasn't a huge
Nice.
argument about it. He just got them another core. He was
Nice.
willing to fund it. So it seems like even the producer is like, happy with it and stuff like that. Or maybe he just expected the big bucks, who knows. But passion projects end up seeing multiple seasons, because another studio that never did second seasons was David Production. And then they did JoJo. And now look at them. They're doing every fucking JoJo because it seems they enjoy doing it so much. And it's not like, I mean, the first season of JoJo sold pretty well. The second season sold very well too, although that was a first core, second core thing. But the third arc didn't sell that well, especially in comparison to the first two. It sold actually like half of what those sold. But they're still doing the fourth one, and it's still got a lot of like passion put into it. So it's passion projects tend to see the light of day again, is well, like I said. So I would not be surprised if we see a second season at some point down the line. But we've been talking about ReZero way too much. Over half of this fucking recording's already over. So
Yep. Oops.
we should cover the other shows, which I imagine will take an infinitely less amount of time, especially certain shows. But the next show we watched that we should finish covering is, I believe we usually do Orange. So
Oh yeah.
what did you think of the last bits of Orange as it aired and the art quality stopped being shit again? So, because that was a thing that happened in the middle and then fixed itself. But
Yeah, that was comical.
yeah, and it even had a double length final episode. But
It was something like that. It was 40 something minutes.
yeah. So what did you think of what do you think of Orange?
It redeemed itself in my eyes, but like I don't feel like what was I gonna say? I don't feel like it was a Orange. Okay, let's start again.
It's not the kind of show that will stick with you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like
Yeah.
it was a sort of like it was a nice show. It was definitely a nice show that had its ups and downs really, but a lot of it was just the sort of to put it nicely, the sort of innocence of Naho, like but other than that, like I suppose one thing which I suppose looking back on it was a minor quip with the show was that I kind of would have enjoyed a little bit more of a exploration with the characters, especially Hidaki, the guy with the glasses, I think. Yeah. And I really wish they kind of explored a possible romance between him and the sports gal. I don't know her name. But yeah, like it was, the character interactions were nice. They grew on me, regardless of how dumb they kind of were at the start. Like it was a it was a like Orange was just sort of in the end. Like I never hated the show. It was just not something which I grew overly attached to. There's no real major qualms with the show. The Cockeroo's backstory and shit was very well laid out, but it wasn't like exceptional. The romance between Naho and Cockeroo was a little cheesy at times, but it was still solid. Side characters, like the entire thing with future Naho and sports soccer dude,
Sua.
Sua, thank you. Yeah, he did Naho just like settle for Sua like in the future or some shit? I was like, well, I gotta have a baby, like I might as well be with him. Like it was,
They were just depressed after Kakeru died, and they somber fucked.
Sad fucked. Yeah, sad
We
fucked.
both were going for the same thing.
Their tears acted as lube. Anyways,
Wow.
Orange was a fine show. Like it was nice, no real flaws, no real
flaws. I don't know about that.
Oh right, yeah, sure. No real glaring issues from me. Like there was the what's it called, the sort of pseudo romance subplot with the bully and Kakerlu, which kind of ended at probably the best time, really. Well, really the best time would have been
would have been
at
the beginning. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But like for actually them to make it like an actual story and worthwhile thing out of it, it probably would have been like, best after there. Like, it was kind of bad though that she stuck around until the last episode though. Like I was hoping she would have been done with, but Orange was just kind of like, it had its good moments, but it was just sort of, to me, ultimately forgettable.
Yeah, that's a good summary of it. It was a fine show. I didn't like abhor watching it each season. Like I enjoyed it well enough. It was interesting to see where it went. But ultimately when it ended, it was just that was a show that I watched and was pretty okay most of the time. And then it's gone. And I won't remember it probably after a couple more weeks. But the ultimate, I mentioned it a couple of times during the SMR we did as it aired, but the show is absolutely at its best when it's focusing on the depression of Kakeru and all the shit that like he goes through, because it's a pretty solid presentation of it. Like it's very, how do I put it, it's rough and cutting without being overboard. Like it accurately captures depression pretty well. Like the fact that they have a character who's like outright suicidal without making it like such a huge like edgy thing is something to definitely be proud of. And it always captured him really well. And like all the moments, like the one moment that captured me the most as we were watching it aired, as I mentioned that one time, was when Sua confronted him in the classroom with Naho, and he just outright tells him to tell them what's going on and to stop hiding. And he like just opens up to them. He's like, I feel guilty for what happened to my mother and I want to fucking kill myself. And it was actually like really fucking heartbreaking. Like, whenever it portrays that aspect of him, it's at its best, which was a lot of the focus of the last couple episodes. It didn't help that there was, like, artificial drama in conjunction with it, like with the bully chick and Naho being, like, the thickest person on the planet. So that didn't help at all. But it didn't change the fact that the portrayal of depression in the show was very well done, and definitely makes me think that it's something the author definitely had to have gone through themselves because of how well it was portrayed. So it feels more powerful because of it. It feels personal. So maybe not in the exact way it happened, obviously, but just the feelings of it and like what goes through that person's mind, and like no one's for them, and like you're just gonna bother everyone if you let people know what's going on and they don't want to hear it, and you're just the utter loneliness you feel. Like it was a really good portrayal, but like I said, it was only unfortunately a small portion of the show. It was the main focus, but it only came to a head in a couple moments. They were the best moments, but still, it ultimately felt like it should have been truncated a lot. Like the show meandered a bit too much, whereas something like ReZero, like every scene felt like it had a point. You were either learning something or it was sowing the seeds for something later. There was a lot of shit in Orange that just, it could have been cut, and it really wouldn't have done anything to the story at all, because the main point of it was about Kakeru and his depression. So that was probably its ultimate downfall. That and the complete ass art in the halfway point where it completely shit itself and characters looked like complete mongoloids for half the fucking episodes. Like, they literally wouldn't even have to move. Like, I understand animation going to shit and you need like a recap episode to catch up, like what happened with Twin Star Exorcist, but they literally were just standing there doing nothing. It was a still frame of them, and it still looked like complete ass, and their eyes weren't lined up and shit. Like, it was a fucking joke. I'm glad it got better. I predicted that was what was going to happen, because usually if there's not a recap episode, the reason it's shit is because they're focusing on shit later down the line. But it still looked like crap, and hopefully it got fixed up in the disc releases, because my god, that episode was fucking ugly and ruined any sense of immersion you could have possibly had. But yeah, that's, like you said at the beginning, ultimate way to describe Orange is good show, has some moments, but ultimately it's just a show you watch and forget about a couple weeks later.
Yeah. It was out of all the shows that kind of came about with like the sort of like all the sort of like, I guess, shoujo shows that's come about, it was one of those shows where like it is sort of a best of forgettable shows.
True.
But it fell very short each time. It tried to make itself exceptional.
Plus the shoujo bar lately is pretty low.
Yes. It's a B+ show, really. It doesn't go that. It's good, but it's not exceptionally good.
Yeah, I'd go for more of a BB-, but I'm in agreement for the most part.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I think we covered Orange. So the next show we usually cover, which I have basically the quickest thoughts in existence on, is 91 Days. So I guess I'll go first because this will be quick. 91 Days was a show that aired, and things happened in it that were in the Mafia era with alcohol and prohibition. Some people died, some people may have died, and then it ended. And that was 91 Days. What did you think of 91 Days, Lewis?
Like, yeah.
Like, we just went over Orange and how it was largely good. It had its moments, but ultimately forgettable. This is the more extreme end of that. 91 Days was a show that I watched, and that's literally the only opinion I can have on it. Like, I don't hate 91 Days. I don't like 91 Days. I am so utterly ambivalent to the show that it feels like I watched absolutely nothing.
I feel like I didn't really gain anything from watching it. Like, it was a nice start, and the ending I appreciated, but
the ending felt like artsy-fartsy bullshit to me. Like, they were just like, really? Well, maybe he shot him and then he drove off. Who knows? Here's some artsy wave shit. Like, it just felt like pretentious bullshit to me. It felt less like that was the intended ending and more like they didn't know how they wanted to end it. Like they didn't know which way to do it that would piss off the least amount of people, so they just kept it vague. That's what it felt like to me.
Well, still. 91 days. It didn't air for 91 days, which is kind of ironic. Probably should have gone for that. That would have been cool.
Oh yeah, that actually would have fit. Actually, 91 days is divisible by 7, isn't it?
Yeah.
That would have been 13 weeks. I think it was 1 week short because it didn't air 1 week, right?
It had a recap episode.
Oh, it did air for 91 days, dude, because it didn't air 1 week, and it had a recap episode.
Shit, we got fucking played, man.
You got played. You're the one who said it didn't air for 91 days.
I'm the one who pointed it out, though. And for a brief moment, you were like, "Oh yeah, you're right, Lewis."
You were right about 91 being divisible by 7. That's what I meant.
Nah. Anyways, what was I saying? Yeah, 91 days. Like, I'm just gonna regurgitate what I said in every SMR, but they needed to concentrate on Angelo a lot more. He was the selling factor. He was the one that everyone cared about or should have cared about. Like, you know, he was the go-to sort of factor for actual enjoyment of the show and actual, like, investment. And yet they decided to concentrate on families we didn't know much about. So yeah, that's my glaring flaw with the show, glaring issue rather. If we're going to talk about positives, then
and it's
Angelo
silent.
Yeah. Angelo was nice. Like, yeah, he was a very, very cool main character, which they didn't explore enough, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe it's arrogant to say, but I feel like the show, rather than trying to be, like, you know, unpredictable and like, ooh, look at all this crazy shit happening and all these plot twists, it should have just been more straightforward, like Angelo having a contrast between a quote-unquote family that, like, actually cares about him and the quote-unquote family that he wants to murder for revenge, and how that contrast could have fucked with him. And it almost got there when he had to kill his best friend. It almost went there, and then it just completely fucking dropped it. And then it went back to being plot twists and shit.
Yep. Like, I can't really say 91 Days was wasted potential, because...
Except the fact that it was.
No, like, hear me out. Like, it kind of... In my eyes, wasted potential was, like, you know, it keeps falling at the last hurdle each time. Like, it always, like, kind of, like... It always keeps failing to pull the trigger on, like, really cool key events that could happen, and, like, but they always try and go the safe route and just, like, you know, they didn't really go above and beyond. And they always end up, like, falling at the last hurdle. 91 Days didn't even show up for the race, you know? Like, they just... they just kind of...
They were on a completely different racetrack.
Yeah, they put in their entry for the race. They did a little, like, you know, trial run, and then they impressed whoever they were needed to impress and got into the race. But when it actually came to the day of the race, they just didn't actually show up and just decided to stay at home and drink whiskey or some shit. Like, you know, it was just sort of... it was just not... For a show that had a lot of gunfighting, the actual show itself really didn't want to pull any triggers in actually going that extra mile to do something.
Yeah.
Like, it was very formulaic for mafia movies and TV shows. Like, it was just... It fit the sort of, you know... 91 days just happened. Like it's not a matter of like it's like glass slip levels of like
No,
just
no,
nothing
yeah,
going down.
but that's
like,
different. I'm not saying nothing happened in 91 days. I'm just saying none of it was engaging or interesting in any way whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it just kind of ends, and it was
yeah.
like, well, that was a show that aired, and I have literally no feelings towards it. Glass Slip actively wastes your time because literally nothing happens in the show. It feels like it might go somewhere, and then at the very end, it's like, well, we're back to the status quo. Wasn't that fun?
What a
What a
funny
fucking
show.
stupid show.
Had something about. Had chickens in it, and I think they implied a lesbian as well.
No, she was bisexual. She had feelings for the main character and the other dude, and she didn't want to choose between them.
Oh, huh. Well, it shows my knowledge of the show and how much I remember.
That also never goes anywhere, by the way. Again, status quo.
No.
Glass Slip is like all about this. Like this show is all about the show that could have been, but never actually happened.
Yeah, it had a lot of like key points that they just didn't really explore, like that dude who ran but like hurt his leg or something.
Or the main dude being like a fucking psychopath who can see copies of himself because he's like schizophrenic, and that never gets addressed.
Glass working as well, who now can like see the future or some shit. Was that?
Yeah, she like saw the future through shit or something.
Glasses.
I don't fucking
shit.
Stop talking about this show. We only have one other show to cover anyways. The last show we cover is well, usually I do brief thoughts on Thunderbolt Fantasy, but we have a little time, so I want to just focus on Alderamin in the Sky. What do you think of Alderamin in the Sky, Lewis?
See, here's the thing. Like, I enjoyed Alderamin not for the plot, but for the actual sort of for Ikta alone. I didn't really see. This is a sort of thing where it's sort of almost sort of the opposite of what's it? ReZero. That's the show. It's sort of opposite of that when like, you know, oh yeah, the plot is not important, it's the characters that matter. But in my eyes, for Alderamin, it's the plot that they were kind of going for that is important, not the characters. Well, that's actually not wholly true, but I'll get to that later. In my eyes, Ikta was not only the selling point of the show, but the reason you watch it. Him commanding armies, the actual platoons of battles, was, for me, immensely entertaining because I loved vanities. Like, it was mainly about fluff, but it had really cool battles and shit, so I loved it. His actual moral backbone was fascinating. Like that scene where he's like cutting off his finger, his pinky finger, bit by bit, was just, it's gonna stick with me really for a while anyways. Like he's a very interesting character that I feel like if there were to be a second season with and with how it's sold, we can pretty much guarantee there won't be, sadly. But yeah, if there were a second season, I feel like there would be a definite more interesting exploration with its character. But the preview of what we got, or rather not the preview, but what we got was definitely awesome. I loved him. He was really a really nice character to watch. He really made up for everything else. Like, it's not like I hated what everything else like happened. Like, it's just kind of like if Ikta was just more bland and he didn't really go above and beyond to like be who he was, I feel like I would not give a shit about Alderamin. It just, the plot was, yeah, it was okay. Like, it had a nice cool little like, oh, who's the real good guys here? But it's just, I can sing his praises all day long, but when it comes to actually the rest of the show, there's not much I can talk about. Mainly because I feel like there isn't really nothing noteworthy to talk about. Like the villain, he was kind of, well, not the villain, the sort of
Rival?
I forget his name. No, not yeah, the dude rival he was going against. Like he was basically just a foil for Ikta. Like he didn't really, he was cool, but he wasn't. Nah. He was just kind of like, the guy that who was presented as being a really smart general, but in the end was just, someone who was presented as being smart, but just someone for Ikta to be bested. It was just. I hate to say that everything in the show was done in Ikta's favor, but everything in the show was done in Ikta's favor. Yeah, I feel like I'm really exhausted Alderamin just talking about it for 4 minutes. The little things that shone light out our stomachs, they were kind of cool. Yeah, that's it. I'm done. I can't really think of anything else that's really noteworthy in Alderamin, sadly.
Yeah, my thoughts are largely the same. I would argue that the story is primarily about Ikta rather than any plot, though. But, it was cool. And then I always liked his relationship with the main chick, too. I liked the bond they had and the shit they pulled off because of it. And it had really interesting, thoughts on, military and all the shit that happens in these battles. And sometimes it's kind of predictable. The general dude is a dick, and the soldiers are just suffering because of it. Because the fucking main dude doesn't actually have to do anything. That's kind of predictable. But Ikta actually, like you mentioned, going to the lengths of actually, mutilating himself. And the fact that they'd actually do that to their main character was actually, impressive. Rather than, him almost doing it, but they'd be like, no, you don't have to. It's fine. No, he actually fucking did it. So it was cool that they were willing to go to that lengths, and it's largely about Ikta, I would say. I'd say it did that pretty fine. It ended on a very blatant cliffhanger for a second season, which Madhouse loves to do, and then never do second seasons except One Punch Man, which is getting one. Again, passion project from studios that don't usually do second seasons. Yeah, my thoughts are largely the same. I don't really have anything to add. Things just kind of happened in the show. It did neat things with Ikta. That was it. I also said it before, but I really liked the ending. But again, that could just be preying on my nostalgia for red-haired, fire-themed endings. So, there you go.
Nice. Yep. Largely the same. Well.
Yeah.
So
that was all the shows we watched last season, at least that we covered on the show. I watched some more outside of that, but I don't really have anything much to say about them. One of the shows I caught up on the last couple days was Ace Attorney. I finally finished that. I'm actually kind of sad they're not going to cover the third game, but the show got better as it aired because apparently there were production issues for the first 5 episodes, so that's why they looked like complete shit. So it got better as it aired, which was nice. So that was a thing. And then I don't even remember any other shows that I watched because I didn't write them down and I didn't care enough. All I cared about last season was basically ReZero, let's be honest. Not that others were bad, it's just that none had anywhere near the same amount of impact. So that was the thing. But yeah, next season this airing season that we're going to cover, I think we largely know what shows we're going to cover. I looked up the shows that were airing that are popular this season. The way I discern what's popular each season is I just look at the member lists on Mal for each show, because now they have a nice little seasonal page, and it lists them by popularity of how many people are watching a show, which can change throughout the airing, but we have to call it, the cutoff at some point. Right now, the most popular 2 shows that are airing are Drifters and Occultic 9. So those will probably be the ones we cover unless within the next couple days that changes, but I don't see that happening. Although I think third place was very close to catching up to second. So who knows? I don't remember what third place was, but whatever. I'll keep an eye on it and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But those are the ones we'll cover. My pick for the season is the second half of Bungo Stray Dogs because we covered it last time, and like I said, favorite writer-director combo. May as well watch the second half, right? Just makes sense. And then Lewis, did you finalize your pick? Is it the one you told me before, or are you changing it?
Like, I'm.
Lewis may still be undecided.
Yeah. If you want to know, I'm thinking about doing the new Wicross show. Because it is a sideshow. I probably will end up watching it, but it's just a matter of like I don't know if it'll actually promise the goods like Selector and
So you'll probably watch the episodes that have aired so far and decide.
Yeah, I think that's it. Cause like there's only 3 episodes out already, and yeah, I'm wary. You know, I feel like it can't really get the heights that it once did. It once did. Because I don't want to say it, because after Selector Infected, I feel like the show just naturally got worse. See, if I say got worse, that people are like, oh, it went to shit. It just lessened in quality. So I feel like if they're gonna like bring out a completely different sideshow, it's either going to be completely like opposite. It's going to be like bad, or it's just going to be it's going to be nearly there, but it's going to be in the shadow of Selector Effect. So I'm going to see how these first 3 episodes go, and then I'll make my decision, because I feel like there's some interesting looking shows this season which I might want to talk about, but who knows.
Yeah, I've heard quite a few things about certain shows airing this season that are very positive and interesting. So there are plenty of picks for you to choose from. So we'll see how that goes. We'll find out Lewis's pick when we record next week and we actually cover these shows. But 3 of them at least: second half of Bungo Stray Dogs, Drifters, and Occultic 9. Unless, like I said, the top 2 shows airing popularity wise change within the next couple days, which again unlikely, but is a possibility.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll do it for this week. We just wanted to wrap up our shows that we covered last season because it'd been a while since we talked about them, because constant scheduling issues. Either a lot of the time what happened is Lewis would be busy on Friday, so we couldn't record, and then I would be busy on Saturday, or I just wouldn't be able to record, which is a problem because those are the only 2 days we have to record, basically. So that was an issue. And then there was a weekend where I was gone, and then it's just multitude of bullshit. Blame time zones. Time zones are the real main issue here, honestly.
Yeah, 8 hours apart, man.
Yeah. But do you have any closing comments, Lewis, for this recording?
Muso Gaku and HH really surprised me in the fact that like they really pushed the boundaries on how far anime can go before it's considered hentai.
Yeah, I actually wanted to. I watched like 3 episodes of that because I wanted to see how far they'd push the boundary. Were there actual sex scenes in that?
There was implied sex scenes, but like
how implied?
Implied in the matter that there was grinding in that area, and there was a possibility that things could have slipped out and slipped in. But it's kind of hard to tell, really. Like there's like basically it really fully depicted like him exploring the pants of other girls like with his fingers and stuff. So it really pushed the boundaries. Like it was fascinating, really.
Maybe I'll finish watching that after all, because after 3 episodes I was just like, who cares? I mean, I know why I wanted to watch this in the first place, but is it really worth it?
Masterpiece, really.
But hearing that it pushes the boundaries in interesting ways, I kind of want to see what they do. Plus, I don't have to watch the dumb plot bullshit of it anyway, so I can just skip to those parts.
Yeah.
I will. Okay, this might be a spoiler, but something I have to ask, because I was actually going to make a mention of this in the ReZero script, interesting enough, but a difference with like ReZero, because I mentioned ReZero script in the review, how like, the point is to like guess what's going on, the hidden threads behind the things and the little information that's teased to you. And I was going to mention how you're more likely, how ReZero invites and is more likely to give answers to that kind of thought process than something like Masogakuen, because there's actually a plot bit in Masogakuen where they mention the aliens attacked, and then they disappeared for like 15 years and then suddenly came back. And I was gonna make a comparison on how on ReZero, if something weird and unexplained happens, you're likely to actually get an answer to what that was. But with Masogakuen, that 15-year gap is likely to mean fucking nothing in the ultimate scheme of things, because that's not the point of the show. But I'll ask, does that 15-year gap of why they vanished actually get answered in the show?
Okay, I'm gonna be real with you for a second here. I didn't actually pay attention to the plot.
That's the correct answer. Because that was like the one thing I noticed in the plot that was actually trying to do something, was like all the shit with the older sister and how she mentioned things about the aliens. I mean, there's also the bit where apparently like the mother joined the aliens or something, so maybe that ties into it. But
yeah, I don't remember anything like that.
I don't fucking know. Anyway, anyways, closing thoughts for this recording, like I mentioned before.
That was actually my closing thoughts.
Right, I know, but did you have any others?
Oh, I don't know if any of the 4 people actually watching this that is watching Recrossed and quickly inform me rather than me trying to waste an hour and a bit of my life on it. That'd be nice.
So, do you want the commenters to tell you if Recrossed is worth tripping over my words here, is worth covering?
Yes, because I'm a lazy son of a bitch.
Okay, so that does it for this recording. We'll see you guys next week when we start covering the new season of stuff. Hopefully I'll have a season preview out by then, but I need to actually watch the shows I'm planning to watch this season before I can do that. So it's going to be very late compared to my usual season previews, but hey, what the fuck is new?
Yeah, like 3 episodes of shit is already out, like...
Okay, the ReZero video wasn't supposed to take this long. It was supposed to be finished like early October so that I could have time to watch like an episode of everything I was interested in and then do the season preview. I didn't expect ReZero to actually take like an extra half a month, but I was stupid and was like, you know what? People care about ReZero. I should actually go through the effort of video editing, which turned out to be fucking pointless because Tokyo fucking TV are a bunch of fucking dickheads. So hey, but at least that video is going to go back up because they probably aren't going to sue because they're a bunch of fucking assholes that just want to waste my time.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunate, isn't it? Like, you know, things get fucked over, but at least you can still see like you know, I don't know, maybe
you can
a
at
very
least,
small ratio.
You can see
like
the bits in the background where I very clearly did do video editing, so at least there's that.
Yeah. At least, you know, you put in the effort of like you're not blocking off completely, you know.
Yeah, and like I said, once the fucking timer runs out and the video has to go back up again, I'll just put like a giant annotation on the video and redirect people to the actual video. Because I can't just unlist the new one, because the new one's gonna have more views than the old one because it's the one that actually got like notifications when it went live. Like basically TV Tokyo fucked me view-wise, because not only is it longer after the show's ended when the actual video will go up, but the censored video basically will have more views and attention than the actual one because I had to do that. So thanks, fuckheads. That's why I actually almost want them to sue me so that I can countersue them for damages. It would be funny.
Oh, for publicity and shit. Ooh.
Not publicity, like they actually damaged any potential views I could get and growth of my channel because I had to put up a shitty censored version.
That's hardcore. That's ooh. You can like there's probably no way you could really lose, but like, you know.
I mean, I'm not kidding. I would totally do it, but that relies on them actually going through with a lawsuit against me, which they obviously will not do. They're just gonna wait 14 days for the timer to run out.
Like, if it's a sure win case, I don't really like imagine a problem with me being your lawyer. You probably do a good job.
Well, keep in mind, even the most logically obvious winner of a court case can lose because the lawyer doesn't know how to argue properly according to the rules. Because there are rules when it comes to court cases.
I can argue good. I can, like, just destroy a man.
Oh, yeah, argue real good. That'll get you the jury.
I can be a great lawyer. I can, like, just go up to, like, the person criticizing you and it's like, hey, man, why are you being such a dick? Like, come on. Stop being a dick, man. And then with that, court's done.
If I didn't have the money to hire a real lawyer, I'd just represent myself. I'm pretty sure I have a better understanding of our court systems than you do.
No, like, That's the thing, though. You're gonna get this like loose cannon in the courtroom that's just gonna like fire away. This like he's got no like care for like etiquette and policies and shit. He's just gonna be like he's gonna go in there with a ball of fury and shit and be like, "Hey man, you did something not right here. Not just, not for justice." So as a result, I'm gonna be like, "Hey judge, your honor, person, dude, can you like just lock this person up forever?" Yeah.
For justice. The fucking prosecution being headed by fucking Masayoshi from fucking Samurai Flamenco.
Ah, wow, that's an obscure reference.
Well, you said injustice and shit, and that's all I could think of.
I just still remember that scene. I was just like, "Senpai, I love you." That's not justice.
That was the best scene.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of great scenes in Samurai Flamenco, but that one's just still the best. It makes the best GIF on fucking Twitter, too.
Yeah.
You just
GIF.
fucking see it. It is GIF. Fuck you.
It's GIF.
It's GIF. The fucking creator of the format said it's GIF. You can't fucking overrule
he's a
him.
Fucking graphic designer, not a linguist.
Who fucking cares? If you make something, you get to fucking name it. It's like when you get mad that I call Wickcross Wicksauce. Because, oh no, that's not what it's supposed to be called because it's supposed to be Wickcross. Well, guess what? The creator of GIF says it's GIF.
I don't see. Okay, that Wickcross argument is fucking bullshit because for starters, the creators of Wickcross do pronounce a Wickcross. So
and
like,
the creator of GIF pronounces it GIF.
What?
Yes, he does. He named it GIF. He calls it GIF. He says it's pronounced GIF.
I do not know. GIF is a peanut butter. GIF is like it's called graphic. So it's the first G stands for graphic.
Who fucking cares what the words in a fucking acronym stand for? That's not the fucking point.
You're not the fucking point.
You don't define the pronunciation of an acronym by the actual words making up the acronym.
Yeah, well, I know you are, but what am I?
Don't argue English with me, motherfucker.
My country invented the language. So
yeah, but apparently you've gotten lazy.
Not lazy. It's just, we like to just... I'm just saying, GIF sounds fucking stupid.
GIF sounds even more stupid. It sounds like you're trying to say gift, but like you can't pronounce T's. Here's a give for you.
It sounds like you're having like an orgasm like midway of sentence, like,
Maybe that's what it fucking sounds like when people say gift to me.
Just, well, it looks like that gift better not be a dick in a box, otherwise it'd be pretty fucking messy.
Sometimes they are, which further proves my point.
Why you even... Whoa, Christmas must be fucking wild in your house if that's what you're getting.
I was talking about GIFs, you motherfucker. What are you talking about?
Dicks in a box.
Yeah, a GIF dick in a box.
So is it covered in peanut butter? Like,
no.
Is it like...
It's just a fucking GIF.
See, here's another thing. GIF also sounds like, what was that? Like, don't GIF me. No.
GIF?
That's not what I was going for. Sure. Yeah, that's what I meant.
GIP me is what you're going for. It doesn't sound anything like GIP. P and F are very different from each other.
No.
Unless it's a PH, then it makes an F sound.
No, like, here's the thing. An F, capital F, is only like one little line away from being a P.
That'd be one boxy as fuck P.
Wow, now you're just like fucking P shaming. Like, you have to like have P's like fucking.
You're the one who says a
like...
fucking F is close to a P. If anyone's P shaming, it's you. If I were a P, I'd be insulted for being compared to an F, but one line off.
Hey, no, that's not what's going on here. I'm saying that, like, there's a natural distinction there. You shouldn't, like, first and foremost, people might not be able to get a curve on a P. So, like, there's probably P writers that, like, have to do, like, a like, So, like...
How the fuck is that P's fault?
That isn't P's fault. I'm saying you, by sort of nature, are just kind of, like...
This conversation's getting retarded. We're ending the fucking recording.
You're stupid.
See you next week, everybody.
Bye-bye. I'm right. You're wrong.
No, he's not.
Shut up.